Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mindora Book Review Podcast, brought to you by Mindora Mindset, your go-to space for personal growth, deeper thinking, and lifelong learning. Guiding you on this journey are your hosts, Bonnie, a lifelong learner with a passion for wellness and self-growth, and Rob, a mindset enthusiast who believes that every great life begins with great thinking. In each episode, we dive into powerful books and break down big ideas to help you think better, spark real change, and apply timeless wisdom to your everyday life. One book, one big idea. Let's break it down. This is the Mindora Book Review Podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm your host Rob, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host Bonnie.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So you sent us the audiobook transcript for Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, a classic.
It really is. Divides opinion sometimes, but undeniably influential.
Absolutely. And that's our plan today, a deep dive into it. Our mission really is to unpack what Hill calls this money-making secret.
Yeah, and not just the secret, but also the core principles he lays out for achieving success, wealth, whatever your goal might be.
It's all based on his claim, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he spent decades studying over 500, very wealthy people.
Mm-hmm. Trying to find that common thread, that, repeatable pattern. Was it just luck, or is there something more? That seems to be his driving question.
And the origin story itself is pretty compelling. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, apparently gives this secret, or the seed of it, to a young Hill. But not just as information, more like a challenge.
Right, like, here's the idea, now go spend your life figuring it out and sharing it. That's quite the task.
It really is. Makes you think Carnegie must have really believed in the power of this idea, this secret.
You'd have to, wouldn't you? To pass on that kind of lifelong mission. It suggests he saw it as something bigger than just personal gain, more like a universal principle.
And Hill does try to give some immediate grounding. He throws out a couple of names early on. Arthur Nash.
Cincinnati Taylor, yeah. Supposedly turned his business right around using these principles.
And Stuart Austin Weir. Changed his whole career path. Went into law because he was so convinced.
Those little anecdotes, they might seem small, but they're important. They try to show it's not just theory.
Right, that it has practical, real-world applications for different people, different situations.
Exactly. It connects the big promise to something, tangible.
Now, we should probably acknowledge the phrase money-making secret. It can sound a bit
scammy.
Yeah.
Like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Exactly. And you get the sense Hill knew that. He frames it more as exploring fundamental ideas he believed lead to success in, any field, finance included.
So it's less about a magic bullet and more about cultivating a certain mindset and applying specific principles.
So let's start digging into that. What is this secret as he starts to lay it out? Does he just state it plainly?
Not really, no. That's one of the interesting, maybe frustrating things about the book. It's not like, here's the secret on page 5. It's more woven throughout. He hints at it constantly. He does say it has 2 parts.
Okay.
And intriguingly, he claims one part is already possessed by people who are, quote, ready for it.
Ready for it. What does that mean? A certain mindset?
Seems like it. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? It's not just about learning something new, but maybe recognizing something you already have or cultivating an internal state.
That is interesting. And he's quick to say that being ready doesn't mean having a fancy education.
Right. He uses Thomas Edison as a prime example. Very little formal schooling.
But obviously brilliant and incredibly successful.
Exactly. So Hill argues Edison had whatever this readiness is, this key understanding, even without the academic background. It suggests it's about practical intelligence, maybe drive.
Okay, so if it's not just formal knowledge, what's the starting point? What kicks things off?
Desire. That's where he goes immediately. But not just any wishy-washy hope.
Needs to be stronger than that.
Much stronger. He calls it a definite desire, a burning desire, almost an obsession. That's the absolute starting point for, anything significant, especially accumulating wealth.
Okay, a definite desire.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Vague hopes don't usually lead to action.
Precisely. It needs focus. And then he gives these 6 very practical steps, a process, really, for turning that desire into money.
6 steps. Let's walk through them. What's number 1?
First, fix the exact amount of money you desire. Be precise.
Not just, I want to be rich, but an actual number.
Exactly. A specific target. He believes that definiteness is crucial psychologically.
Step 1. Specific amount. What's 2?
Determine precisely what you intend to give in return for that money.
Ah, the value exchange. It's not just about getting.
No, it's about contribution. What service, what product, what value will you provide? It grounds the desire in reality. You have to earn it.
Makes sense. Step 3.
Establish a definite date, a deadline for when you intend to possess the money.
Urgency. So it doesn't just stay a someday kind of dream.
Right. It forces commitment, makes it a concrete objective with a timeline, puts pressure on you in a good way.
Okay. Number 4.
Create a definite plan to get the money, and this is key, begin at once.
Begin at once, even if you don't feel totally ready.
Yes. Don't wait for the perfect plan or the perfect moment. Start moving. Imperfect action is better than no action. Build momentum.
I like that. Okay, step 5.
Write it all down. A clear, concise statement. The amount, the deadline, what you'll give in return, and the plan.
Put it in writing. Makes it tangible, like a contract with yourself.
Exactly. It crystallizes everything, takes it out of your head and onto paper, forces clarity.
And the last one, step 6. This sounds important.
It really is. Read that written statement aloud twice a day. Once before bed, once when you wake up.
Okay, repetition.
But here's the kicker. As you read it, you must see, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the money.
The visualization and emotion part. That sounds like the core of it.
It feels like it, doesn't it? That's the auto-suggestion piece. Engaging the subconscious. Making it feel real now so your subconscious starts working to make it actually happen. It's about aligning your inner belief with your outer goal.
So those 6 steps, especially the last one, are really about programming your mind for success, starting with that intense desire.
That seems to be the essence of it. Bridging conscious intent with subconscious belief.
Now, Hill also connects this idea of having a clear goal, definiteness of purpose, he calls it, to the times he was writing in, post-depression.
Yeah, he argued that times of big change, uncertainty, they actually favor people who know exactly what they want.
Why is that? Seems counterintuitive, maybe.
Well, when everything's shifting, the old ways break down. That creates openings. If you have a clear direction, a purpose, you can navigate that chaos. You're not just drifting. You have an internal compass.
And he saw it as a time demanding new ideas, new leaders.
New inventions, new ways of doing things. Disruption creates needs. People with purpose are the ones who spot those needs and create the solutions.
He talks about practical dreamers. I like that term.
Me too. People who have big visions, big dreams, but aren't just daydreaming, they can actually translate those dreams into action plans.
They make it happen. He even mentions historical figures tapping into intangible forces. What do you think he means by that?
It's a bit mystical sounding, but maybe it's things like intense belief, motivation, charisma, the energy of a shared vision, the non-physical stuff that drives people.
And he says you need tolerance, an open mind, a pioneer spirit.
Yeah, basically, don't be stuck in old ways of thinking. Be curious, adaptable, willing to explore the unknown. That's essential when the world is changing.
Okay, let's shift to another faculty he highlights. Imagination. The workshop of the mind, he calls it.
Right, where all ideas, all plans are born. And he says fortunes start with ideas.
And he splits imagination into 2 types.
Yes, synthetic and creative.
Synthetic, with that?
That's basically rearranging old ideas, concepts, plans into new combinations, using existing building blocks in novel ways. He says most inventors use this type, mostly.
Okay, combining existing things. What about creative imagination?
That's the more direct line, he suggests, where you get hunches, inspirations, entirely new ideas. He connects it to infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence. That sounds big.
It does. It's his term for maybe a universal source of knowledge or inspiration, the subconscious tapping into something larger. It's where the real breakthroughs come from, he implies.
The synthetic is remixing, creative is receiving something new.
Kind of, yeah. And he says the creative imagination works best when your mind...
Desire again, it all connects back.
It does. And importantly, he says, imagination, especially the creative kind, develops with use. It's like a muscle.
You have to exercise it. He tells that story about the old doctor.
Oh yeah, the soft drink formula, sold it for $500.
Right, just a simple formula. But the buyer added one missing ingredient, something the doctor didn't know.
And turned it into a massive fortune. It shows the idea itself had potential, but needed that extra spark, that connection, which came from imagination plus knowledge.
A tiny idea, huge outcome.
Yeah.
And the story about Dr. Gonzalez.
The sermon, yeah. What I would do if I had $1 million.
And his passionate idea, his plan for a college, actually inspired someone to give him the $1 million.
It's another example of how a powerful, well-defined idea, born from desire, can attract the resources needed. It's not always about having the money first. The idea can draw the means.
So ideas and imagination are crucial, but then you need a plan. This leads to organized planning.
Exactly. Hill stresses that just having knowledge isn't enough. Information isn't power on its own.
It needs structure.
Yes, it needs to be organized into practical plans of action. Otherwise, it's just dormant knowledge.
And this is where he introduces the mastermind principle.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
He defines it as the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people working towards a definite purpose in a spirit of harmony.
So teamwork, but with a specific focus and harmony.
Yes, very much so. It's about synergy, leveraging collective brainpower and energy.
What are the benefits? Why form a mastermind group?
He talks about economic benefits, access to more knowledge, skills, resources than you have alone, but also, interestingly, psychic benefits.
Psychic?
Okay.
Mind reading.
Haha, probably not literally. More like an increased energy, a heightened creativity that comes from that harmonious collaboration, the sum being greater than its parts, kind of group flow state maybe.
Okay, that makes more sense. Increased creative energy from the group dynamic.
Yeah, and he uses Henry Ford again as an example.
Right. Ford didn't know everything about building cars.
Not personally, no. But he had his mastermind group engineers, executives, people with the specialized knowledge he lacked. He knew how to access and coordinate that knowledge.
So you don't have to be the expert in everything yourself.
That's a key takeaway. Leverage the expertise of others through collaboration.
Okay, but even with a great plan and a mastermind group, things don't always go smoothly. Hill talks about defeat, failure.
He's very realistic about that. He stresses that temporary defeat is pretty much inevitable on the path to big success. Failure is part of the process.
The key is not letting it be permanent defeat.
Exactly. He emphasizes persistence. So many people, he says, quit just when they're about to succeed.
He tells that story about the gold miner, Mr. Darby.
Right. Quit digging just 3 feet from a massive vein of gold. Sold the claim. The next guy brought in an engineer, found the gold immediately.
Ouch. A painful lesson in persistence.
A very vivid one. And he contrasts it with a story about a child showing amazing persistence just to get something small. The principle is the same, regardless of the scale.
So persistence isn't some magical trait only some people have.
No, he argues it's a state of mind, something you can cultivate.
How? What helps build persistence?
He lists several things. Definiteness of purpose, knowing why you're doing it. Desire, that burning motivation. Self-reliance. Having clear plans, accurate knowledge. Cooperation, the mastermind, helps here. Willpower. And habit-making persistence habitual.
It sounds like all the previous principles feed into building persistence.
They absolutely do. They create the foundation that makes it easier to keep going when things get tough.
He mentions Fannie Hurst, too, the writer.
Yeah, battling for years to get recognized on Broadway, facing rejection after rejection, but she just kept going. Shows what relentless persistence can achieve, even against the odds.
Don't give up just before the breakthrough. Okay, another key principle. Decision. Making decisions.
Yes, and specifically, the habit of reaching decisions quickly and definitely, and then changing them slowly, if at all.
Quickly decide, slowly change. He uses Ford again, with the Model T.
Exactly. Ford decided on the Model T, its design, its price, and he stuck with it for years, despite advisors urging changes. That unwavering decision, that focus, was key to its mass production success.
What's the opposite? What do people who fail tend to do?
According to Hill, they are typically slow to decide, easily influenced, and quick to change their minds.
Flitting from one thing to another. No firm direction.
Right. Indecision paralyzes action. Constantly changing your mind means you never fully commit to one course. It creates instability.
He even uses a major historical example, the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, he talks about the courage of Adams, Hancock, Jefferson, and others, making that huge, definitive, dangerous decision. It wasn't tentative.
It required immense conviction, and they stuck to it.
Shows the power of definite decisions, made with courage and faith on a grand scale.
Okay, that brings us nicely to the mind itself, the subconscious mind and faith. How does he connect these?
He argues the subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, but it acts on what dominates our thoughts, especially thoughts mixed with strong emotion.
Like desire.
Like desire, yes, but particularly faith. He sees faith as the key emotion to cultivate.
How does he define faith here? Is it religious?
Not necessarily. He defines it as a state of mind, a firm belief in attaining your desire, that you can induce through self-suggestion or autosuggestion. It's about believing before seeing.
So you use autosuggestion to build faith in your subconscious.
That's the idea. You're essentially programming your subconscious to believe your goal is achievable, even inevitable. And he believes this faith is what allows you to tap into that infinite intelligence.
He talks about vibrations too, right? In the ether. Sounds a bit dated.
The language is definitely of its time, yeah. The ether concept isn't current science, but the underlying principle is about mental attraction, maybe.
Like attracts like. Positive thoughts attract positive outcomes.
Something like that. The idea that your dominant thoughts create a kind of mental environment that influences what you perceive and attract. If you're constantly thinking lack and fear, you might attract more of that. If you cultivate faith and positivity,
you're more likely to see and seize opportunities.
that seems to be the core idea, even if the vibration language is old-fashioned. And he gives a practical formula for autosuggestion, specifically for building self-reliance.
A script you can use.
Yeah, focusing on daily affirmations, stating your belief in your ability to achieve your goals, your value, etc. It's a very proactive way to shape that inner belief system.
Okay, so desire, plans, persistence, decision, faith. What about obstacles? He mentions fears.
He does. He identifies 6 basic fears that he believes hold most people back.
What are they?
Poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
The big ones. Primal fears.
Absolutely. He says mastering these is crucial and that he'll go into them in more detail later in the book. Just identifying them is the first step, though.
But then he adds another one, a 7th basic evil.
Yes, which he considers perhaps even more dangerous, susceptibility to negative influences.
More dangerous than fear of death or poverty. Why?
Because it's insidious. It's about being easily swayed by negativity from outside, from other people, from the news, whatever. It can undermine all your positive efforts, your faith, your persistence.
Like letting other people's doubts infect your own mindset.
Exactly. He sees it as leaving your mental doors unlocked, allowing negative suggestions to creep in and take root, poisoning your subconscious.
So how do you combat that?
By consciously choosing your associations, surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people, guarding your mind against negativity, building a kind of mental shield.
Protect your mental environment. Makes sense.
It's crucial for maintaining that state of faith and purpose.
And finally, he touches briefly on self-analysis.
Just briefly here, yeah. He recommends doing an annual self-inventory. Using a list of questions he provides to honestly assess your progress, identify weaknesses, and see where you need to adjust course.
Like a personal performance review.
Pretty much. For continuous improvement. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground from just the initial parts of the book.
We really have. It lays out a pretty comprehensive framework right from the start.
So just to recap for everyone listening, the core ideas we've pulled out are the absolute power of a definite burning desire, backed by faith.
Mm-hmm. And the need for those 6 specific steps to channel that desire. Fix the amount, what you'll give, the date, the plan, write it down, visualize, and feel it daily.
Then the importance of definiteness of purpose, especially in changing times. Using both synthetic and creative imagination, the mind's workshop.
Don't forget the mastermind principle, leveraging collective energy and knowledge. Crucial.
And the sheer grit of persistence. Refusing to accept temporary defeat, making decisions quickly and firmly.
Right, and underpinning it all, cultivating faith through autosuggestion, mastering those basic fears, and critically protecting yourself from negative influences.
It sounds simple in some ways, but the application, that requires real conscious effort, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These aren't passive ideas. They demand action, introspection, consistency. It's work. Mental work mostly, but still work.
So here's something for our listeners to think about. As you heard us discuss these principles, desire, faith, persistence, planning, imagination, which one really jumped out at you?
Yeah, which one resonates most with where you are right now, with your own goals or challenges?
And maybe more importantly, what's one small concrete step you could take, maybe even today, to start applying that specific principle in your own life?
Because just listening isn't enough, right? Hill would argue the real understanding comes from doing.
Absolutely. We hope this dive gave you some food for thought. Let us know what you think if you have questions, or if there are other parts of Think and Grow Rich you'd like us to explore next time.
Your feedback really does shape where we go with these deep dives.
Thanks for joining us today. Remember, that journey of learning and applying, it's an ongoing process. Until next time.